welcome back. And again, very timely to have back with us today Richard Harris. He serves as the executive director there of the Truth and Liberty Foundation. He's the host of the Truth and Liberty Show and the founder of the Richard Harris Ministries. After graduating from Cornell Law School, he practiced law for 29 years and represented clients in all levels of state and federal courts, including the U.S. Supreme Court. He's also the founder of the Richard Harris Ministry, where he teaches right from the Bible. He does have a website, truthandliberty.net, truthandliberty.net, and there's the picture of the landing page. Richard, good to see you again.
Hey, Perry, thanks for having me on. Good to see you too.
Yeah, Happy New Year, and when do you sleep?
I told someone the other day I had some forced rest over the holidays. My wife said it's time to stop moving for a while, and so we did have a wonderful holiday. It was good to be home and
well,
family.
Good for you. A lot to talk about, and I certainly appreciate your passions. I do want to get into the situation surrounding the school case in Colorado, but what's your 30,000-foot view that's happened with Maduro and Venezuela in the last 48 hours?
Well, it's just been a stunning news cycle. The United States military just put on a show demonstrating its prowess, and couldn't be prouder of them. It's also so encouraging, Perry, to have a president who is willing to take action, to fight for America's interests abroad and not be afraid of opposition. And, Maduro, all these leftists coming out and claiming, that we, are imperialists and all this is just absurd. Maduro was never rightfully elected in the first place. It was a fraudulent election, and the entire international community recognized that. He's a dictator, brutal, atrocious civil rights record. Women raped and people murdered and locked up and political prisoners and everything from A to Z, plus the whole, shipment of drugs into the United States nonstop, and then taking that money and funneling it over to communist Cuba to empower them to spread communism and leftism. He was a direct threat to the security of the United States. He's also a criminal, and I think we did the right thing, and I just applaud the Trump administration for it.
All right. There's a lot of other questions, but we'll let time kind of unfold here so we can come back to them. Yep. But I want to come to your concern and your involvement in sounding the alarm of what's going on there in the Colorado school case involving an 11-year-old girl and the gender identity policy. One quick big question: why is gender education / all forms of sexual activity the #1 agenda on public school curriculum?
Well, that's a good question. Would take a long time to unpack that. But essentially what has happened is the teachers' unions in America have been co-opted over a long period of time by the hard left in this country. So leftists control our schools of education in our colleges and universities. And so teachers and educators across America have been indoctrinated in this cultural Marxism and neo-Marxism, including LGBT philosophy and ideology. And so right here in Colorado, at the University of Colorado in Boulder, they launched something called the Queer Endeavor about 7-8 years ago that is designed to accomplish exactly what we're seeing now today across this country, the elevation of radical transgender and LGBT ideology. They're trying to remake society, remake culture in this sort of nihilistic, morally relativistic vacuum, kicking out God, rejecting all truth, allowing people to do whatever they want, whenever they want sexually, and it's just insanity. That's what's happened, and so we have got to fight back, push back, and restore our institutions, especially our schools, to the biblical morality foundations that we were built on.
I want to touch on that, but give us an update of the case there with this young girl in Colorado. What's going on there?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the parents in the case filed a lawsuit in federal court because the Jefferson County schools had a trip to Washington, D.C. And I'm not sure if your viewers are aware of the facts of the matter, but their 11-year-old daughter was on this trip, and the school officials put her in a bedroom, assigned her to a bedroom with a transgender boy. And the girl thankfully had enough, intestinal fortitude to speak up about it. And so they moved her to another room, thankfully, but they told her to be quiet and don't tell anybody, which of course is an infringement of her First Amendment rights. And so the parents have filed suit because they believe and allege, and I think properly so, that this is part of another aspect of this whole radical ideology, which is that the parents are the enemy. We don't want transgender parents, the parents of transgender kids, to know about it. And so we've got to keep all this transitioning that we're facilitating. We got to keep it secret from the parents. And this is just wrong on so many levels. And so the parents courageously have filed suit in federal court. And I believe that it's in the initial phases now. I'm not 100% sure procedurally whether the preliminary injunction or any other remedy has been granted yet, but it's ongoing in the district court in Colorado.
Is this a grooming case as much as it is a First Amendment issue?
Good question there, Perry. I don't know the facts about the transgender boy and whether to what extent the school was facilitating his transition, so-called transition. They were obviously allowing him to, share intimate spaces with the opposite sex. So to that extent, it is grooming. To the extent that such activity can affect other children and cause them to be open to transgenderism and homosexuality, then that is grooming as well. But specifically with that boy, I'm not sure of anything that was done, not aware of anything that was done other than this sharing of a bedroom space with a girl.
Kind of a 30,000-foot view question, Richard. What has happened to just the general moral order character of teachers, and moreover, the medical community that seems to be complicit to this?
Yeah. Perry, there was a socialist, Marxist in the late 19th century, early 20th century named Antonio Gramsci. He was Italian, but he was quite influential, and he wrote and spoke about the need for a long, slow march through the institutions. And while we have rested on our laurels and enjoyed the benefits of living in a nation built on the gospel and on the Bible, we have not realized the threat, the serious nature of the threat that was posed to our country by these subversive philosophies and ideologies. And while we have, like I said, been enjoying life, they have been hard at work for 100+ years, spreading their dogma in our schools and universities, and from there into the other institutions of our country. And what we're seeing now is that the seeds that they have planted are now matured and are bearing fruit. Those trees are bearing fruit, and we're seeing it happen. So we have moral relativism, there is no truth. The youth today believe this. The majority believe there's no truth. You can have your truth. I can have my truth. The Bible, is outdated and whatever. And they also believe that the founders of our nation were illegitimate, were bigots, were money grubbing, greedy imperialists. And so everything that we believe in and hold dear has been dismantled while we slept. And so the teachers now in our schools, not all of them, of course, but many are adherents to woke ideology and philosophy because that's how they were trained and that's how they were raised. And we just didn't know the extent to which it was going on. And that's the situation we're faced with now. And it's not just in schools, it's in our boardrooms, our businesses, it's in the halls of government, of course, across America, it's in Hollywood, it's in entertainment, it's in all of the mountains of influence in America. And even in our churches, Perry, not to go on and on about this, but our seminaries have been largely influenced, even evangelical conservative seminaries. The Southern Baptists have been grappling with this problem now for the last 6, 7, 8 years trying to put a stop to it and get it out, but many seminaries across America. So we have pastors all over America who are embracing transgenderism, who are embracing moral relativism, who are, all other sorts of wicked ideologies. So, they are wanting to completely destroy Christianity and take over America and remake it in their own image. That's what we're dealing with.
Excuse me, do you think it's hitting a wall?
Well, I think there is a reaction. Yeah, absolutely. I think there is a recoil that's taking place. The Spirit of the Lord is moving. I believe that a revival, an awakening actually is underway. The great news that we should all be rejoicing about is what we're seeing in the youngest generation, Gen Z, and to some degree, the millennials as well, are attending church in record numbers, so greater numbers than what we've seen in a long time, even pre-COVID, even more than baby boomers. Bible sales are through the roof. We're seeing massive evangelical revival meetings take place on college campuses across America. And so I think there is a lot that God is doing as people are, at the same time, while we see this wokeism making incredible inroads, we're also seeing people wake up and realize, wait, I've been fed a lie. This philosophy is empty. It's not real. It's not true. I'm not happy. I'm miserable. I need answers in my life. And they're turning to God. They're turning to traditional sources of truth like the church. And so that's cause to rejoice for sure. We saw a little bit of that recoil in the 2024 election as people, voted for Donald Trump. He still had what I consider to be a very, very low majority, although he was touting it as a major landslide. We need Kamala Harris should never even come close to being nominated by a major political party in this country. So we should be happy, but we should also recognize that we have a whole lot of work still to be done to disciple this nation again.
All right, let me take a break here. Let me say to our viewers and listeners, check out Richard's website, Truth and Liberty. Oops, almost said the wrong word there. truthandliberty.net. Check it out, and check out the podcast there as well. truthandliberty.net. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and delighted to have back with us today Richard Harris. He serves as the Executive Director of Truth and Liberty Foundation. That's also his website, truthandliberty.net. Check it out. He's an attorney. He has his own ministry. He's pretty active out there, and he's been very passionate and watching what's going on with the whole transgender issue in public education. Richard, there's no saying you don't break God's laws break you. Covenant keepers win, covenant breakers lose. All of this seems to be an attempt to silence God's order for humanity. There's no question about that. And parents now are in shock. They may be in the shock and awe stage. It could turn to anger. You got to be careful about that. But what do parents do when they see their kids trapped in this stuff?
Absolutely. So parents, first off, need to get equipped with biblical truth first and foremost, and understand that all of this wokeism and these lies are they're lies from the devil. And children are not born gay. They're also not born trans. God doesn't put people in wrong bodies. Children who, or any human being that struggles with same-sex attraction or with gender confusion is almost universally, they're in that position because of some form of trauma, abuse, neglect, rejection. And when we get to the root of those issues and we bring the love and grace and salvation of Jesus Christ into that, and we minister it to that person, they find deliverance and they find healing. This is what parents need to do with their children that are encountering these issues. They also need to teach their kids as if they, to equip them with that biblical understanding. God made us male and female. We are unique and special in His sight, and all of these truths, so that they can stand when they are, subjected to groomers and this ideology in our culture. If your kids are in school and get groomed or get recruited and this sort of thing, what they need to do is first off, contact the school, object to it. If the school doesn't immediately rectify the situation, contact an attorney. There are many nonprofit law firms that are out there fighting for biblical values and Christian rights in our culture. Alliance Defending Freedom is one of them. They're mentioned in this case. They're representing the family in this Colorado case that we've already talked about, Perry. Another is Liberty Counsel. Matt Staver leads that. They're a great group. And there are many others. First Liberty with Ellie Shackelford. So these groups, these law firms would be happy to hear from you and help you assert your legal rights and stand up for what is right in our schools.
Okay, back to something you said earlier, and that is that there seems to be a genuine hunger for truth, and young people are starting to seek that. Some have called it a silent revival or a quiet revival, that young people, say below the age of 30, are really realizing that they've been lied to, they don't know who to trust, and they're investigating faith. Do you think we as Christians are prepared for them to come in, because they're not going to look, smell, and act like us?
Well, I think that's a great question, and sadly, we're not as prepared as we should be. I know the grace of God is sufficient for us as individuals and as the church, and we will receive, and hopefully these young people will be discipled. But George Barna's studies show that only 4% of Americans have a biblical worldview. Inside the church, evangelical church, the number is not a whole lot better, in the low teens maybe. And so if we don't have a biblical worldview, how are we going to disciple these young people in the Bible? I think we inside the church need to take a good, long, hard look at how we are doing church today, because we have brought in all sorts of worldly approaches and worldly philosophies. We failed to recognize that the purpose of the local church is to make disciples. The purpose of the local church is not, quote unquote, to win the lost. That's what we do as individuals. If we can get back to the biblical basis or the biblical mandate that Christ gave us to make disciples, that means people who follow every command, who emulate him in every respect, not just getting our saved so we can go to heaven, but reflecting Christ in everything we do and think and say. That's what we need. Our mission needs to be restored to the body of Christ, not just here in America, but really all over the world, and push out these worldly philosophies and approaches that we've bought into, with the seeker-friendly movement and all this other stuff that has watered down the gospel and made us so ineffective. So sadly, I think the answer to your question is we're really not prepared. It's time to retool in a hurry and mobilize for this harvest that is coming in.
If the government is starting to push out wokeism, it's being pushed out of the military, it's being pushed out of public or government agencies. I mean, this new administration is pushing it out. And some corporate America is now realizing that go woke, go broke. It really looks like that there is a genuine pushback. I guess we could say, well, yeah, it's wrong. But what should our message be if other agencies and government agencies and the military and even corporate America is starting to reject this? I'm wondering if we know how to handle the fact that this is going in our direction.
Yeah, are we going to let defeat be snatched from the jaws of victory?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I want to caution people that what we see in this pushback, it's corporations, it's government too, but we're 10 months away from another election. And in this election, if we don't get involved, if we don't stand up and fight and do everything we can, Congress could end up going back into the hands of radical Democrats. And what I see on that side, I see no change of heart, Perry, amongst the Democrat leadership. In fact, I see lots of doubling down. New York City just elected a communist Muslim. Can we imagine that in the United States of America, a communist Muslim elected as mayor over our largest and most wealthy city? What we've got to do is we've got to realize that we are in the midst of a war, a long-term war, a battle for the hearts and minds of this nation. And in any war, you have victories and you have losses. And we are right now on the other side of a massive victory in the election of Donald Trump. We're seeing some victories in corporations, like you mentioned, but these victories could easily be taken away from us if we sit back and relax and don't, double down our efforts. If we don't, take we have to realize how deep the incursion has been, how pervasive this ideology has gotten. And pastors, above all, have to wake up and have to take responsibility, not just to put butts in the seats in their church, but to disciple their communities. And, if we can look at this from the perspective of a war, a long-term war, and realize it ain't over until the white flag is flown by the enemy and we've, routed them from the field, spiritually speaking, of course, then, that's when we're going to have cause to rejoice. Right now, let's just keep our eye on the prize and keep working as hard as we can.
One quick question. I got about a minute and a half. Do you think that the average Christian and maybe even ministry leader understands at the end of the day socialism is the enemy of the church?
Oh, no. They clearly do not understand that. They don't see socialism as a spiritual issue. They see it as an alternative economic system, right? And many now today believe it as probably better than capitalism. Most believe, I think even inside the church, that capitalism is kind of nasty and greedy and yucky, right? And evil. And we don't like that. We don't want people wanting to get rich, right? It's wrong to want to get rich. But they don't realize that capitalism is really, the word capitalism was invented by Karl Marx. We ought to be using the word free market or free enterprise, that a free enterprise system is the biblical method. That's what God endorsed from Genesis to Revelation. He wants people free to exercise, their right to own and use private property to make the world a better place. The free market system is the only system in the world that rewards people for making other people's lives better. So I think, free enterprise, free market, socialism, this is a biblical issue just as much as marriage and family and even abortion. So we've got to teach the Word of God on that subject as well.
Socialism only can totally work if there is no faith involved. And so you got to look at it that way. Hey, Richard, you're fascinating. We'll stay in touch. Let me say to our viewers and listeners, check out his website, truthandliberty.net. There's a picture of the landing page, truthandliberty.net, and stay connected with him and his foundation and his work. God bless you, my friend. Stay in the fight. We need you.
All right. Thank you, Perry. God bless you.
Okay.